Welcome back to my book club. Today I am going to be reviewing Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. And if you watched my last video in defense of children's books, you might be a little bit surprised that I am reviewing this book so quickly after my last video. Because I told you that it was going to take me a really long time to read because it's over 500 pages long. But I read it in 3 days. So if you want to gauge how much I enjoyed this book based on how long it took me, I liked it a whole lot. And this is going to be my book club review of it. So this is the cover, Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. This is her. I think she's like 24 years old, which is amazing because this is like a New York Times bestseller. And she's just really super successful with this book, and I think it's going to be just like, obviously it's already been a life changer for her, but Tomi Adeyemi is a Nigerian American author. She graduated from Harvard. She's studied West African culture and religion and spirituality, and she uses all of those things so expertly in this book that it just kind of like makes my heart warm, because she has these passions that she poured into this book, and it's an amazing book. You can tell how much she cares about all of those things and how expertly she can weave all of them together. So not only has she used her interests, but she's used her skill in writing to create this amazing book, Children of Blood and Bone. So this is the first book, and I guarantee you that it's going to be at least 3. It's got to be at least 3 books. 2 for sure, because there's a heck of a cliffhanger at the end. But I'm gonna take the book jacket off really quickly and just call your attention to the actual book. So this is the hardcover edition, and when I read a hardcover book, typically it looks like this because I take the book jacket off. But this one actually has this stamp in the front, this graphic that I thought was really cool. So the first thing that I noticed when I opened this book was this map. So typically if I see a map in the front of the book, it makes me a little bit nervous, because that means that things are going to get complicated and the author feels like they need to show you a map. But that's not really the case here. It was easy to keep everything kind of in line in my head. An example of something that got a little bit complicated was like the names in the Hunger Games. So if you remember all those names in that book, they were like super hard to remember. I can't even remember a lot of them at this point in my life, because they're just so weird and complicated. But this was not complicated in that way at all. Again, it's just kind of like a little bit of a visual aid. So this book is written in the perspective of 3 different people, which is kind of unique. So typically if you read a book, it's either going to come from, you know, a first person perspective where you have the person talking you through their experience, or you have like an all-seeing narrative that's telling you what everybody's thinking. But in this case, we actually have 3 first-person narrative points of view, and our main character, her name is Zaylee. So if you look at the accent here, that's going to make us pronounce this name as Zaylee, not Zelly. I actually scoured the internet looking for videos of Tomi Adeyemi pronouncing Zaylee to make sure that I was doing it correctly, because I know that this is going to have movies, and I don't want to walk into the movie for the first time and they're like, oh, Zaylee, and I'm like, oh, I thought it was Zelly. We also have the perspective of Amari and Inan. I have the 4th main character at the bottom here. His name is Zane, but he is not a perspective that we see in the book. It's just these 3 perspectives. So Zaylee and Zane are brother and sister, and Amari and Inan are brother and sister. So Amari is the sister, Inan is the brother, Zaylee is the sister, Zane is the brother. And this book is a fantasy book. It's revolves around magic. And actually I thought that one of the things that really captured the whole feeling of the book, like if I was just gonna read you these 3-4 lines, that would be kind of what the whole book is about. So on the back cover here, I'm just gonna read this really quickly. It says, "They killed my mother, they took our magic, they tried to bury us, now we rise." So in the land that these 4 people live in, Amari and Inan are the prince and princess. Zaylee and Zane are just like regular people, but Zaylee has magic. And in the world that they live in, you don't actually utilize your magic unless it's been kind of like activated. And typically that doesn't happen to like young people. So Zaylee and Zane, their mom was magic also. And so she had magic and she used magic. She was what they consider a reaper. So there's lots of different kinds of magic that you can have. And Zaylee is the same thing. But the king, so Amari and Inan's dad, his family was killed by magic. And so he has a vendetta against magic that he is going to execute no matter what. So when Zaylee and Zane were very small, their mom was killed along with everybody else that had magic that they could use. He killed all of them. He got rid of magic. Nobody could use it. And everybody that was magical but didn't actually have their activated magic yet was allowed to survive. And you can tell who those people are because they have white hair, like the cover. And they are considered to be like just the lowest of the low. They're treated like dirt. They're on the bottom of the social hierarchy. A lot of times they're slaves, or they're just used. They are subhuman. No one treats them very well, which is why a lot of them, most of them, have the desire to get magic back. So in a chance of fate, Amari runs into Zaylee. She stole something that's crucial to bringing back magic, and she runs into Zaylee, and they end up trying, between Zaylee, Amari, and Zane, their whole journey is about bringing magic back to the people. And Zaylee is super passionate about this. She's a passionate, headstrong person, and Zane is kind of her protector, so he's gonna go wherever she's going because he promised his parents that he's gonna take care of her no matter what. And Amari has realized that the things that her father has done in the past, especially with the people who were magical or are magical, was wrong. She has realized that he's a terrible person, and that in order to be considered equal or to be able to have a fighting chance in the world, that these people need their magic back because they're just being run over and treated awful. So Amari has this kind of epiphany where she's like, you know what? I'm gonna try and right the wrongs of my father. And so that's where we kind of get these 3 together. So the last main character and how he plays into this is Inan. So Inan is the prince, and he is a very complicated character because he's being torn in two different ways. So his father has raised him to be ruthless and unforgiving and just hating magic because it killed, his dad's family. And he has taught Inan that he has to put his kingdom before everything else. His kingdom comes before all of his own personal needs and wants, and he needs to put his kingdom first. And he totally does that. But the thing that he is conflicted in is when he meets Zaylee and Zane as he's trying to find his sister Amari. He realizes that his father has not done things correctly. So both Amari and Inan realize the sins of their father, but the way that they handle that is different. So Amari is like 100% helping Zaylee and Zane trying to bring magic back, and Inan is really struggling with how he should do that. He doesn't know what he needs to do to bring peace and equality to his kingdom, but he's being torn in two different ways. So his dad wants to get rid of magic completely, and Zaylee and Zane want to try, and Amari want to try and bring it back. And so he's a very empathetic person, and so he's trying to do things correctly, but it seems like every decision that he makes is hurting somebody that he loves. And so he's a very interesting character, and I think he's going to be an interesting character to watch in the next book for sure. So this book is, it's got action, it's got romance, it's got magic, it's got fantasy, it's got mythology. It is so dynamic and awesome, and it's all of these things just like crumpled up and put into this amazing story. And I think no matter who you are, I think you'll find something in this book that you would like. So like I did with Artemis, I'm gonna give it like a movie rating, which is PG-13. I'm gonna go with PG-13 on this. I would not suggest it for people under probably 7th grade, but if you read, just kind of like as a gauge, if you read The Fault in Our Stars and you could handle that emotionally, I think that you could handle this book. It's more of a high school book for sure, not a junior high book, but it's awesome. It's so good. Obviously I read it in 3 days, which, you know, means that I liked it a whole lot. So go out, get it from the library, you know, buy it if you want to, I guess, but I think everybody should try and read it, because I think it's going to be a huge book this coming year, especially when the movie comes out, which I don't know, like, if they've even started doing anything with it, but it's very awesome. It is worth the read, and I hope that at least some of you read it so I can fangirl with you about it this coming school year. So go and get it. Let me know what you think.